We begin tonight with the latest on President Trump's impeachment trial. It remains a fast-moving story, and we have gathered 5 of the best reporters on the beat to discuss the developments just days before the Iowa caucuses and the State of the Union address. Here is what you need to know. First, the Senate debate over witnesses was jolted on Thursday when retiring Tennessee Senator Lamar Alexander declared that the president's conduct was inappropriate, but he decided to not push for witnesses.
I agreed he did something inappropriate, but I don't agree he did anything akin to treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanor. I think there's a big gap there.
His decision left Democrats struggling to find 4 Republicans to support their effort to summon former National Security Advisor John Bolton and others. And by Friday afternoon, Democratic hopes were dashed when the remaining holdout, Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, announced that she, too, would not support calling witnesses. She criticized House Democrats for sending over, quote, articles of impeachment that are rushed and flawed. Second, the New York Times reported early Friday that Bolton's upcoming book accuses the president of directing Bolton to, quote, help with his pressure campaign to extract damaging information on Democrats from Ukrainian officials. And by Friday night, right now, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell held his members in line. In the vote to call witnesses, it did fail, with only 2 Republicans voting in favor, Senator Mitt Romney of Utah and Senator Susan Collins of Maine. Joining us tonight from Capitol Hill, in the center of the action, Karoun Demirjian, congressional reporter for The Washington Post, Jake Sherman, senior writer and co-author of POLITICO Playbook, Carl Hulse, chief Washington correspondent for The New York Times, and here with me at the table, Ayesha Rascoe, White House reporter for National Public Radio, and Susan Page, Washington bureau chief for USA Today. Let's start with the Dean of Senate Reporting, Carl Hulse. Carl, there has been an agreement tonight about the timing of the final vote on the articles of impeachment. What can you tell us about the politics and negotiations behind that decision?
A lot of wrangling going on here, Jake, trying to get to an end game here. So what has happened is that there's been a decision that was cleared with President Trump to have a final vote on Wednesday, I think at 4 p.m. Now that's important because the State of the Union, of course, is on Tuesday, so the impeachment will still be going on, the trial. So first on Monday, you'll have closing arguments from the defense and the House managers. Then the floor will be open. The Chief Justice won't be in the chair for speeches by senators, and that can go on for a few days. But what happened was there was pushback from moderates, Republicans, who didn't really like the rush to finish up today. So Mr. McConnell, as he usually does, found a way to keep his people united and move forward over Democratic objections, of course.
Jake, when you look at Leader McConnell able to keep that conference united, what explains his ability to do so? How did he do it, get those 51 Republicans together?
It's a very important question, Bob. I think he is a master at knowing the mood of his conference, and he knows where people are going to land before they land there. And I think it's also important to realize that everybody kind of agreed to the end game. They knew that the president would be acquitted, and they had to figure out the path of least resistance to get there. But Mitch McConnell is a very adept operator. He is able to stay patient and calm and not blink in the face of adversity. His opponents, Democrats and some Republicans, that frustrates them, but it's what makes him so successful is his ability to navigate these very choppy situations. And frankly, Democrats didn't have much power here. They're in the minority and they stuck together, but we'll see. I mean, there's a very real possibility that Democrats at the end of the day are voting to acquit Donald Trump. So that will be a big victory for the president at the end of this impeachment effort.
Susan, what are you hearing about that point, about possibly seeing Senator Manchin of West Virginia and other moderate Democrats vote to acquit President Trump?
I think it is likely that there will be at least some Democratic support for the president on this, Joe Manchin being the most obvious possibility. He sided with Trump on some previous things. His state went by 42 percentage points to Trump in 2016. So understandable. But Democrats did hold together on this vote today on witnesses. And it'll be a victory for Trump to be able to say he was cleared in a bipartisan way. It's not the timing he wanted to have. He wanted to be able to stand up there at the State of the Union and claim vindication, and he'll be short. He won't be able to do that on Tuesday night, as his timetable calls for.
Ayesha, to that point about the White House's perspective as they watch everything unfolding at the Senate, what's their aim now for the State of the Union, knowing that this vote will not happen until Wednesday, the day after?
Well, they're saying that they're going to have this very optimistic speech that's going to be, looking at America as the comeback kid, and it's going to be, the president is going to be, take that to do some victory laps, all the things that he has been able to accomplish, and there are things, the trade deal with Canada and Mexico. He's had some victories, and he wants to be able to show that, but he's not going to be able to have this victory over impeachment, not that day. But he knows that he's going to ultimately get the acquittal. But the question is that going to be enough for President Trump? He's someone that likes to hold a grudge. He's not someone who just lets things go. And I think this idea that he will always be an impeached president is something that's going to be hard to have that hanging over him, and then also to try to come together and say, we should all come together as a country. That's not exactly Trump style, but I'm sure you'll hear a little bit of that.
Karoun, thinking about holding a grudge, you see conservatives, some Republicans tonight, outraged about Senator Mitt Romney of Utah, Senator Collins, supporting the call for witnesses. Why were there only 2 Senate Republicans at the end of the day who ended up supporting that push to summon Bolton and others? What stopped Senator Alexander and others from joining that group?
Republicans that were in play, and Collins and Romney seemed to be sounding the most, as in the questions that they asked and the statements that they were making, as if they wanted to hear more of what people like John Bolton had to say. We were watching, obviously, Lisa Murkowski and Lamar Alexander as well, but it seems that people like Senator Alexander took the argument that Alan Dershowitz basically gave them when he first came forward, which is that even if all of this is true, and even if everything Bolton says corroborates the case that the House is making, so what? That's not worth removing the president from office. And that's basically what Alexander said in his lengthy statement last night. And Murkowski kind of alluded to in certain ways, even though she was expressing more frustration at basically the process that had gone on in her statement today. And so we see that that argument worked to kind of be the framework that a lot of Republicans voiced over the last few days, and that's what ended up convincing Alexander, who would have frankly had to be one of 2 additional Republicans to join Democrats for them to have the votes to actually carry the motion for the witnesses across the finish line. And it seems that they found that a compelling reason to say we don't need to keep this going any longer.
Carl, were other Senate Republicans watching Senator Alexander on Thursday night? Were others prepared to maybe think about crossing that line? But was that the key moment Thursday night when Senator Alexander
I think
made
so.
the
I
decision?
think that some of the senators let Senator Alexander speak for them. I met with the senator today. He was very thoughtful about his decision. A big thing with him was the fact that the caucuses are on Monday. He thinks there would be a bad public reaction to trying to remove a president right now, and he wanted nothing to do with it. He did talk a lot about the fact that he thought the public would not accept this decision at this time. I think that weighed heavily in his deliberation.